RusAme reader, Crow Song, and today I will be reading to you from Handcuffs by Raccoon Mania. Now, on to Chapter 1. Russia sat straight in his chair, glaring with his icy stare across the meeting room at a country who was slumped in his chair, clearly not caring about the meeting. Quite opposites, though that was easy to say at first glance alone. Really. The room was full of countries. The few missing to complete the group of countries were non-members of the United Nations, thus meaning they were not obliged to go to the United Nations obligatory meeting. An amazing loophole, really. All was silent, all because one nosy, bratty, capitalist pig had made a very specifically aimed comment. 2 minutes earlier. You want to attack me? Think twice. Russia stayed silent. He wasn't one to waste words. He simply tilted his head and made a hand gesture to demonstrate the phrase, "Go on." America grumbled, not having a threat. He was the type of person who jumped before looking. So, of course, he hadn't planned that far ahead. Russia nodded, knowing the other didn't have a comeback. And so, America, frustrated, got up to attack him, only to have Mexico tug him back in his chair. América, por favor, no. Realmente no vale la pena. That translates to, America, please don't. It's really not worth it. Yo, Mexico, mind your own business, will ya? America lashed out. Russia rumbled in some sort of dark amusement and looked at the American straight in the eyes. If looks could kill, this would be the most painful torture ever. Oh, but he is right, you pig. Russia provoked. Great Britain tried to get the United Nations to stop what was going on, but failed because... Back to present. America held his shotgun, aiming it at Russia, and keeping it aimed at the Russian. Sadly, weapons were not restricted in the meeting area, but not that many carried harmful objects on their person. America was one of the few countries who brought a weapon, always on edge and ready to protect himself if needed. Too many sci-fi, horror, or zombie apocalypse movies will do that to you. Well, that's what the joke was, but really, he just didn't feel at ease without one. The atmosphere was extremely quiet. Russia was staring at the ceiling, clearly aware of the shotgun aimed right at him. But his composure gave the idea that he simply did not care. But in all truth, if someone were to say Russia did not care if he died or lived, the Russian would not contradict said statement. Jamaica was sitting in a corner, smoking pot with a few other countries, such as Nigeria, Zambia, Bermuda, and Chile. All of which, of course, had brought their own marijuana, weed, and so on. The smoke began lightly spreading the room, reaching the closest to the group of smokers. United Nations was one of the people who the smoke reached first. United Nations looked around the room, clearly exhausted and quite disappointed with himself. So, with the lack of sleep and the weed fogging his mind just a bit, but enough to make him act rashly, he took out handcuffs and marched over to America dragged the American to the Russian, and cuffed them together, and threw the key as far as he could. The key, thrown in a random direction, flew in the general direction of the chicken cage Vietnam had brought with him to the meeting, for he feared that somebody would steal his dinner during his absence. The key landed in the cage, and the chicken, not questioning to itself whether this was food or not, ate the key. Of course, a few countries saw, but the few countries who witnessed where the key landed all either thought that Russia and America were assholes, or that this was situatable justice to teach the two powers in the world a lesson. The lesson either being for past grudges or the fight. And now, I believe, is a good time to end this meeting. One last note before you all leave. Remember that traveling will be highly discouraged, so please do avoid visiting friends or family. America grumbled at that. Russia simply drank from his bottle and got up, consequently dragging America up with him. New Zealand ran straight up to America, passed him a formal-looking note, and shot a glance at Russia, and ran back to Australia, who had been holding his kiwi. The two then walked off, back to their respective homes together, since the two were siblings and lived quite closely to one another. America zoomed through the note. He groaned in annoyance, and passed the note to Russia, who ignored the American. Seeing that this was going to get nowhere, America started tugging Russia along towards UN, who was discussing some matter or another with NATO. Asshole, what are you even made of? Liquor and sandbags? Muttered the disheveled American upon reaching his destination. NATO glanced at the two, and then looked back at UN. We will continue this conversation later on, I do hope. UN spoke, beginning to walk off, feeling lightheaded. NATO then placed his gaze on the two countries. Seeing as United Nations, after much negotiation, has left to rest for what I presume will approximately be a day, I shall be the one to transmit the message in their place. NATO paused to take a breath and continued. You are not to take off the cuffs before the next meeting. If both of your attitudes towards each other have improved by the next monthly meeting, then we will see about removing the cuffs is acceptable. Now, good day. I have important matters to attend to, and discussing with two children is no longer my current preoccupation. And with that, NATO walked off as well, leaving the two red, white, and blue countries. America was the first to speak. So, my house or your house? And that's the end of this chapter. I hope you've enjoyed. Also, I'm going to invite you to join the Discord. It is linked down in the description. I also take requests as to what I might read next. And that being said, I hope you have a nice day, night, morning, or whatever it is for you. Just enjoy the rest of your time. And I will see you tomorrow.